Hi, I'm Mash Ponigala, brand strategist at Spellbrand. A hero's journey is something that's been with us for a very long time. All the way back thousands of years ago, storytelling was, in fact, the first kind of communication for humankind, even before the written word or all those traditions that are being passed down. Storytelling was actually the beginning of communication. That's probably what set us apart from the other animals. Now, if you look back over thousands of years, we've had great kind of epics, right? All the way from the epic of Gilgamesh. Then you have Homer's Iliad. You've got ancient kind of sacred texts, right down to today, looking at novels, looking at movies, films, right? If you look at all this whole breadth of our literature, the human literature, you will see that there is a kind of a pattern that is consistent amongst all great stories. And this is called the hero's journey. This term, or rather this concept, was coined by Joseph Campbell in 1949 when he published the book A Hero with 1,000 Faces. What Joseph Campbell did was break down all the stories, all the great stories from ancient times till the 1940s. He sort of created a structure based on the patterns, and he called that a hero with 1,000 faces. And he distilled this kind of journey, the hero's journey, into 17 steps. It's split into 3 different kind of acts, and each act has a few steps, making 17 steps together. The hero's journey has a lot of bearing on our audience journey, right? If you're a brand, if you're a business, if you're an entrepreneur, and you are trying to create brand awareness, if you're creating a brand strategy, then looking at the hero's journey and looking at the structure of the hero's journey, the different stages of the hero's journey, and aligning them with your audience journey as well as your brand journey, you're going to find that your positioning, your kind of marketing, your messaging, your core essence really improves. So in this video, we're going to talk about the overall view of what the hero's journey is and how it sort of aligns with the audience journey in case of your brand, your business, and so on. In subsequent videos in this series, we're going to be looking at each step of the hero's journey. We break it down and we look at the details. We look at case studies. We look at how different brands around the world are using these stages and what they're doing in terms of marketing, in terms of their messaging. What are the 3 acts of this hero's journey? Well, if you look at the first 3 acts, it's split into the departure act, the initiation act, and the return act. So in the departure act, which is the first act, the hero leaves the comfort and familiarity of the ordinary world, right? So this is the ordinary world of the hero. This is his life before the so-called adventure. Then you have the initiation act. The hero moves out of the ordinary world into the world of the unknown. They're taken out of their comfort zone, usually against their will. This new world is known as the special world. And then you have the third act, which is the return act. In this final act, the hero beats the odds and returns home in triumph. Now, in this video and in the subsequent videos in this series, we're going to be looking at 3 different movies, right? My favorite movies, quite popular movies, and we're going to be looking at their story structure and seeing how they fit the hero's journey. We'll also be looking at what each step means in terms of your audience, action steps, what you can do. Now, in this video, of course, this is an introductory video, so I'll keep it brief. I'll not go into too many details, but in the subsequent videos, I will drill down each step. Now, the way to think of the hero's journey, the way to use the hero's journey in your own kind of business, in your own kind of marketing, in your own kind of brand strategy and messaging is to Sort of imagine the hero being your customer. Now, don't confuse this with the archetypes, right? So the hero archetype, and if you haven't seen my series on archetypes, I suggest you take a look at it. It's quite informative. It would really give you an insight into the psychology of your audience. Now, there are 12 different archetypes, and the hero is one of the archetypes. Now here, when I say the hero's journey, the hero in this context, in the hero's journey, is not the same as the hero archetype, right? We're just calling them a hero in the sense that they are the subject of our kind of journey, right? We're looking at them, and they are our audience. Now, the audience can be different archetypes. So I just wanted to clarify that. I'm going to leave a link below. Go check out my series on archetypes, especially the hero archetype, so that you know the difference and you don't get confused. The way you can use these the different stages of the hero's journey is either linearly, right? So you look at it as one continuous kind of stream. You got all the steps in order, in sequence, and you can look at your own business. This is very useful, especially if you are starting out a brand new business and it's a new brand, and you're working on your brand strategy, you're setting down your core messaging, your brand stories and things like that. Then you can go linearly and you can approach each stage, come up with messaging for that, and then move on to the next one. If you're already in business, if you're already advanced in marketing, then you can actually jump between these steps. You don't need to do them linearly. Pick and choose the steps that you want to focus on. Please note, and it's very important, that as we discuss, as I take you through the hero's journey, the steps of the hero's journey, imagine that it's your audience. Now, your audience are always on their own journey, right? That's called the audience journey. Now, what that means is, let's say you're selling a product or a service, a lawnmower, right? So let's say you're selling lawnmowers. Now, the reason I smile is because, yeah, it's probably a blunt example, no pun intended, but just for the sake of this discussion. So let's say you're selling lawnmowers. Now, your customers are people who need a lawnmower to mow their lawn, right? And they are on a journey in terms of this particular product. And what is their journey? Their journey is they have a lawn and it needs to be lawned, it needs to be mowed. They could either go for and hire someone to mow their lawn, or they could do it themselves. And typically a lot of people just try and mow their lawn, and for that they need the right kind of tools. And there's a lot of problems that come up with that kind of activity, and that is the journey. And their journey is starting with those problems that they face to buying your product and then becoming a loyal customer. So that is the audience journey, and keep that in mind when we are talking about the hero's journey. Okay, so let's get back to the hero's journey now. The hero's journey starts with the ordinary world. Now, the ordinary world is the world of your audience, or actually the hero, before the adventure, right? So before they are taken to the special world, this is the ordinary world. Now, in this world, they're living their lives. They're probably comfortable, not all the time. If you take the case of movies, and take the case of 3 examples, we're going to be talking about Lord of the Rings, Frodo, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, and then we're going to look at Matrix, Neo, right? Thomas Anderson. So these 3 characters, these 3 heroes are we're gonna use them in subsequent videos to discuss each step. Now, if you look at this, in Lord of the Rings, for example, Frodo's ordinary world, when they introduce the Shire, you find Frodo under a tree, right, in the forest, very peaceful. It's a summer kind of environment. He's got a pipe in his mouth and he's reading a book peacefully. He's got this contented smile. So that ordinary world for Frodo is a satisfied world, right? So then Frodo is not really aware of the problems that are coming up, or the problems that he might have. But then, if you look at Star Wars, Luke is not really happy with his world, right? And you can know that by looking, he talks to his uncle, of course, about, how he wants to go and explore the galaxy. But also, he stands there and looks at the two suns, and he's got this kind of expression on his face, which is one of dissatisfaction, right? He's looking to the stars and he's wondering, what is out there? What am I missing? The same case with Neo in Matrix. When Neo is introduced, he's actually at his desk and he's searching for something. He's got a lot of questions. Something seems to be off about his world and he wants to know what that is, right? So he is dissatisfied. So in the ordinary world, the hero could be satisfied or maybe not. Now, in your kind of audience journey, they could be, they're probably aware of the problems that they have, or maybe not. They're probably not aware. So that is the ordinary world. And from the ordinary world, you move on to the next stage. The call to adventure. The hero is in the ordinary world, unaware of what's going on, and then they're moving into call to adventure. In this call to adventure, the hero is made aware of a problem, right? So their awareness of the problem increases, and a kind of a call comes to take action or to move from their comfort zone in their kind of ordinary world into a special world. Now, of course, the details of the special world, the details of the adventure are not known. The hero does not know the details. Lord of the Rings, Frodo, the call to adventure comes from Gandalf, right? So Gandalf comes to the Shire and calls Frodo to hold on to a ring. He gives him the ring and says, keep it safe for me. And then he goes away and says, keep it safe for me till I come back. And of course, a call to adventure is not necessarily one step, right? It's not just one stage. A call to adventure can come at multiple times during the hero's journey, right? So, for example, in case of Frodo, initial call to adventure, take the ring, keep it safe, I'll come back. And then when he comes back, he says, take the ring and take it out of the Shire, right? Save it because somebody is coming to take it and you need to take it and go on this journey. And then, of course, there are many, many different calls to adventures. The same case, if you look at your audience, is for them to say, step out and try and solve that problem. And the case of the lawnmower example is to say, okay, I need to mow the lawn and my old lawnmower has some problems, right? So I need to fix them. Or if you take the case of a service, if you're providing a service, let's say you're targeting business owners and you provide copywriting services, right? So you write compelling copy for their literature, their brochures, or their websites, their marketing. And so in your case, your audience in the ordinary world, for example, they're just going about doing their business or they're launching a business and they probably don't know the importance of the right kind of marketing copy. They probably don't even know that you can pay someone to write that copy, or even if they know that, they probably think it's a very expensive affair. The call to adventure is for them to sort of have an increased awareness and say, hang on, I'm writing this copy or my partner is writing this copy. Do I need to get someone professional to write this copy? What is the importance of this copy? Then you have the third step, which is the refusal to the call. Refusal here is when the hero doesn't want to go on that adventure. They don't want to respond to that call. If you look at any great movie, right, or any great novel, or any movie, any story, most stories, you find that the hero or the heroine is reluctant. They don't want to, because they don't want to go out of their comfort zone. They don't want to move from their comfort zone. And this is the refusal to the call to adventure. And you can see that in the audience world too, in the sense that a lot of people refuse the call to adventure, they refuse this call where they know that they have to do something to improve their business, for example. Or if they're not business owners, let's say normal people, right? Ordinary, in the sense they're not business people. They do know that they need to solve that problem. right? They need to get a new lawnmower, or they're going on a trip. They want to take great pictures. They know that they've been to many trips in the past, vacations, right? Holidays. And the photos are always disappointing. So they need to do something about it. But the comfort zone, they don't want to get out of that comfort zone. So the refusal is the third step of the journey. Then you have meeting the mentor. Now, every great story has a mentor. Now, the mentor comes in, the hero meets the mentor, the hero, heroine meets the mentor, and the mentor actually guides the hero, right? They guide them not only in overcoming their refusal, but also the rest of the journey. That they're almost like a guide, right? A blueprint, a map. And in the case of the audience journey, the audience need a mentor. The mentor actually maybe sheds light on their problem, makes them aware of what the problem is, shows them the path, opens the door. So meeting the mentor is a big kind of a pivotal point in any great story. And if you think about it, marketing is nothing but storytelling, right? Branding is nothing but storytelling. By telling the right kind of brand story, you create a bond with your customers. You create a bond, an emotional bond with your audience. And once you create that, then it's all about inbound marketing. You're not shouting to them. You're not disturbing your audience, but rather they come to you. In terms of the mentor, if you look at, for example, Lord of the Rings, Gandalf is the mentor, right? In the case of Star Wars, Obi-Wan is the mentor, at least initially. Then, of course, you have Yoda who comes in. So yeah, you could have multiple mentors, but when it comes to our business, of course, we want to be the mentors, right? We want to be the guide. In the case of Matrix, you have Morpheus, who is a mentor. Meeting the mentor is a big step. It's a big step of the hero's journey. Then you have number 5. Crossing the threshold is where the hero actually makes that decision to go on this adventure, right? And it's a point of no return. So they're committed. They've made this, not committed to the adventure itself, but to the decision of going on this adventure. So they've made up their mind. They're like, okay, I wanna do this. I wanna go on this. So crossing the threshold actually requires a catalyst, right? It requires something that awakens them. And in fact, crossing the threshold is what Spellbrand is all about. Our tagline is awaken your brand. And we focus a lot on that step of the hero's journey, our hero's journey. So you have crossing the threshold. And once they've crossed the threshold, the hero, it's point of no return, right? So they're on that journey. They've started, embarked on that journey. Step number 6, which is tests, allies, and enemies. Now, this is the journey has begun, and for every hero to complete their journey, to overcome their obstacles, they need allies. Now, allies, friends, these are people that the hero meets on their journey, and they provide, help, assistance, guidance. Sometimes they provide tools. In the case of your audience journey also, allies could be intermediary, right? They're transitioning from not having your service or your product to having your service or product. But then if your product is, let's say, an expensive product, then you have intermediary steps, and these could be the allies. But in the hero's journey, these are people who come in and they help. For example, in the case of Lord of the Rings, it's the fellowship. So Frodo, of course, you have Sam who comes along with Frodo, and then Frodo goes and meets the fellowship, and fellowship are the allies that help Frodo on that journey. In the case of Star Wars, you've got Han Solo, Chewbacca, a ton of others later on throughout the series. In the case of Matrix, Trinity, you have the people on the ship, and we'll discuss that when we get to that video. So tests, allies, and enemies. Now, enemies In the hero's journey, for example, enemies could be the ultimate enemy, or they could be minor enemies. Just like in a game, you have, you got the big bosses at the end, then you got small bosses that you fight, that you have to sort of vanquish in order to get to the next stage. And enemies could be anything, right? Not just people that you fight, not just people that the hero fights. An enemy could be, let's say the hero does not know the path, right? That is an enemy. That not knowing the path is an enemy. And that's how it applies when it comes to your audience journey. Your audience journey, the enemies are the pain points, it's the problems that your audience has. So that's number 6. Then you have step number 7. Approaching the innermost cave. Now, approaching the innermost cave relates to this concept of the internal journey and the external journey. The stories where the hero does not have both the internal and external journey, those are the movies that flop. Those are the characters that we don't associate with, that we don't bond with. The external journey, of course, is the adventure, right? But then there's always an internal journey. Internal journey is the transformation of our hero, right? It's an arc, transforming from where they were as a person. Most people have something that they're sort of fighting against, right, inside their mind. And this could be addiction. This could be their lack of, or their ability to do something, or it's maybe the relationship. It's how they look at the world. This is the internal kind of turmoil. And usually a hero's arc is about overcoming that, right? Overcoming that internal. Or it could be an internal journey of trying to achieve something, which is something different from the external journey. Approaching the internal, the innermost cave, the step 7, is about that point where the hero's journey connects to the internal kind of that conflict, that turmoil that the hero has. This is sometimes the lowest point. This is the lowest point of the hero. In the case of Lord of the Rings, for example, the lowest point is when Frodo thinks that Gandalf has been killed by Balrog, right? Or in terms of Star Wars, it's when Obi-Wan is killed by Darth Vader. In the case of Matrix, it's when Morpheus is captured by the agents, and so on. So it's a place where, the hero is at the lowest. Now, in terms of the audience journey, it's the place where they are full of doubt. It's the place where they're realizing, oh my God, this is going to cost me quite a lot. Or, oh my God, I don't think I can buy this. Or, I don't think I can solve this problem. So that is step 7, innermost cave. Step number 8, the ordeal. Now, the ordeal is something where the hero actually has this huge kind of fight, right, in the external world, and they just narrowly escape with their life. Huge kind of tension, and there's a lot of action happening. Let's say, for example, the Lord of the Rings, right? The ordeal is when Frodo actually goes into Shelob's lair and is almost killed, right? And of course, Sam comes and saves him. But that is an ordeal. Now, your target audience, your customers, they also will have this ordeal where they're ready to give up. Yes, it's the innermost cave is something similar, but the ordeal is something bigger. It's this their own resistance. They need to overcome that resistance. That is the ordeal. Step number 9 is when they overcome that ordeal, they have a reward. Now, this could be the ultimate reward in some cases, and the hero's journey ends here. They just get that reward. It could also be a reward, a minor reward leading up to a climax, right? In the case of, for example, Lord of the Rings, Frodo realizes that Gandalf is not really dead, right? So that is a reward. Or he gets out of Shelob's lair and Sam saves him, and he realizes he's not dead. That is a reward. In the case of your audience, a reward could be that they buy your product or service and then they solve their problem, or they could be rewarded with something small. This could be a reward in terms of something free that they can get from your business, or It could be a piece of advice that comes free, but that really has a huge impact on them, and so on, right? So that is the reward. The next step. I've combined 3 different steps into one step. These 3 steps really, they're very similar, right? They have something very common, and that is the road back, the resurrection, and the return. This is where the hero has defeated the villain, the bad guy, The audience also have overcome the obstacle that they set out to do. And they return home, or they return back to their ordinary world, which has now been transformed into a special world, right? It's not ordinary anymore because their problem has been solved. And in Joseph Campbell's structure, it's return with the elixir, right? So they come back with the treasure. They come back with something that has transformed their lives. And in the case of Star Wars, for example, Luke Skywalker, he destroys the Death Star and gets a medal from Princess Leia. So that's kind of return. But the resurrection in the case of Star Wars is, for example, is where Luke continues the journey to become a Jedi. In the case of your audience journey, let's say, for example, that in the reward, they've already bought your service, they bought your product. This step in their journey is what happens after they buy the product. And a lot of companies actually actively sabotage this step. There is a thank you email for the order, and that's about it. In fact, if the product has a problem, if the service has a problem, the customer is then treated like an enemy. They don't want to hear from them, or they don't want to give a refund. And we'll talk about that in depth in the last video in this series. It's a very, very critical one. But anyway, that's the last step. If you wanted to get an overview and you don't want to go and watch any of the other videos, that's fine. This video is good enough to give you an overall idea of what a hero's journey is, how it aligns with the audience journey, and how you can look at it. Of course, what's missing from this video is the action steps for each step, right? What to do in crossing the threshold. When your hero, when your audience is crossing the threshold, what should you do? What kind of messaging you should have, what kind of action steps, what kind of strategy you should have. That is what I will discuss in each of the subsequent videos. So don't miss out on these videos, watch them. If you have any questions on this journey, just leave them below and I will try and answer them. I've also written an in-depth article on this. It's on the Spellbrand website. I will leave a link below. Just go and check it out. And yeah, see you in the next step of the hero's journey.